Welcome to Learn at Work podcast, which is sponsored by iOS Press, the publisher of Work, a journal of prevention, assessment, and rehabilitation. We're delighted to host this podcast that will bring together insightful conversations and thought-provoking discussions on topics that matter most in the realm of health, rehabilitation, work, prevention, and assessment. What can you expect from our podcast? We'll have expert interviews, individuals who have published in the journal, and we'll dive into conversations with leaders who have shared their valuable experience and expertise. You'll learn about different latest work trends, technology, and best practices. I'm Karen Jacobs, the founding editor of Work, and I'm the moderator of these podcasts. I'm delighted to have on this episode of Learn at Work a dear friend and colleague, Dr. Valerie Rice, who's in Tennessee. And Valerie, you've been part of the journal through the whole journey, 34 years. Wow, that's been a long time. But I'd like people listening to our podcast to get to know you better. So tell us about yourself and what you're doing and what it's been like to be on the board and publish and work. So I'm going to turn it over to you to let people know more about you.
All right. And of course, Karen, ask any questions, even if you need to interrupt me to do so. So, yes, I am Valerie Rice. And Karen and I have been friends for obviously longer than 34 years since I've been involved with the journal for 34 years. I was active duty military for my career as an occupational therapist. It was really a great career. If you ever have time to talk to me and if you have somebody who's considering the military, I tell you what, you'll want to join after you hear how great my career was. But for a time, I was stationed in the Massachusetts in Massachusetts, yep. And I did full-time research as an occupational therapist at the Army Research, not the Army Research Laboratory, but at one of the medical laboratories. And I did a lot of research on pushing and pulling and carrying and really heavy and difficult jobs that people have in the military. Also did some research setting some of the standards for lifting and carrying, that sort of thing, national standards from there. And then when they needed somebody to be in charge of their cognitive sciences branch, as you know, occupational therapy deals with both physical as well as cognitive side, mental health side. I became the chief of the cognitive sciences branch. But one reason that also helped me be able to do that is I'm an occupational therapist, but I also have a master's in healthcare administration and a PhD in engineering. And the PhD in engineering specializes in ergonomics and human factors. And so you can see that also in human factors and ergonomics, what you are doing is you are building things to fit people. Whereas in OT, you're really working with the people and changing, what they can do to be able to go back to what they used to. You do a little bit of design work, but not as much as you do in human factors. So you can see, and in human factors, it's also not just the physical, but they study all things cognitive also. It's very much looking at how do people perform their jobs, their living, and making sure that what they use is easily used by them. So that's where Karen and I met. That's the background before the journal work started. So
Yeah,
I don't
Valerie,
know.
I loved that was in Hopkinton.
Yes. No, it wasn't in
What?
Hopkinton. Hopkinton is where the Liberty Mutual Research Laboratory was, but our laboratory was close by. It wasn't too far from.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Um, Delayed memory.
I
I
know. Me
envision
too.
seeing
I'm
you
thinking,
there.
what?
It's been a long time.
Right.
And Valerie, I love that you have combined three different areas, really, with degrees, and they've all come out to um, help support an amazing career that you've had.
Yeah, I think I was just really, really fortunate. Um, they all those careers work well together. The administration, and I think really that, if you work in a field for a while or for, even a good period of time, you know what you need from your administrators, and I think that it really helps you be a better administrator if, you have had that experience, as well as if you wanna go back and get the education in it, get the degree in it. And then ergonomics and human factors and OT just go so well together, and Karen knows because she's also involved in the Human Factors and Ergonomics Society in the U.S., which is it's also an international society. That there are a fair number of occupational therapists that have kind of bridged that gap by getting an additional degree and doing some additional types of work that in which they go back and forth too, and like they just blend well. And as I said, my whole career was military, but I did 25 years active duty where I did I did care, OT care, and I did that with, of course, with injured active duty, injured veterans, but also with family members for the children and for the spouses of the military personnel. So I got to work in pediatrics. I got to, work in, the cognitive rehabilitation, physical rehabilitation, drug and alcohol rehabilitation. It's really diverse. The military is its own, you know, it's not its own little world because everything you do is for the American people, and you're very aware of that all the time. So, but in a way, everything you need in the civilian sector you need within the military. I mean, so we have grocery stores, we have hospitals, we have clinics, and so it's really you can do a lot of very, very diverse things within the military. I was also a hand therapist, and a hand therapist in the military, at least when I was in, we could order casts, we ordered X-rays, we were considered upper extremity extenders. So, for example, when I was in Germany, I would see the injuries, the hand and upper arm injuries first, unless it was an emergency. And I would see them, and then a doctor would come in, and I would walk around this whole group of people with that physician, orthopod usually, and I would explain what I'd done. I'd give him my notes. I'd say what I had ordered and that sort of thing. And then he would either agree with me or suggest something else. Um, they were very gracious. They never said, "Oh, no, that's not the right thing." They would just say, "Well, you might want to also do." So just an amazing career. And then when I retired from the military, I went right back to work for the military as a civilian, doing full-time research again. And that research, a lot of it was more cognitive. So I was very fortunate in that I got to do a couple of things that led me to the research I ended up doing. So I went down to Maryland and was stationed there for a summer in a human factors section. And the human factors section didn't have anyone who had had any training in human factors and ergonomics. And so I got to visit several universities to see what they were doing. And one of the things that I was able to see is what was being done with meditation. And both from individuals that were teaching in California and some that were teaching, in Maryland. And when I ended up at Fort Sam Houston, and which is in Texas, doing research, there was a great interest in how do we help the soldiers that are coming back that have either head injuries, or PTSD. And so it was just kind of naturally flowed right into doing mindfulness-based stress reduction research and seeing how it helped soldiers and other military with their cognition, with their ability to pay attention. That was a big thing. I did a lot of attention-based research, some of it with meditation, and some of it with various computer devices that help you to attend and interestingly, involve auditory, visual, and physical attention, and keeping your attention on something you might be familiar with, the interactive metronome. And so we also looked at that, but we looked at a number of different things that would help people attend. So it was kind of an amazing career, and they sent me back to school. Like I said, I finished my OT masters with them, and got 9 months of internship instead of the normal 6. I did the master's in healthcare administration from Baylor with them, and then the Army sent me back for my doctorate, like I said, in human factors and ergonomics engineering. So it was a great 2 careers, really, 25 years with the active duty military, and then 17 years as a military civilian with Army Research Laboratory. So it was pretty wonderful, and,
Amazing, amazing
yeah,
career.
yeah,
Um, and
and
you
getting sent back to school all those times, right?
yes.
Okay. Yeah,
And, I love that, you're encouraging people who are interested in the military as a career to contact you and others. We've had many, many students in our program at Boston University who have been in the military in different branches. Now,
right.
you are doing different things now.
Yeah.
And
It was
I love when we get to see each other because I get to learn more, and sometimes you apply what you're learning to me, which I like the last time when we were together. So maybe you can share what that is.
I
It's
would be
I love
happy
it.
to. It's been really fun. So, at the very end of my research as a military civilian, as I said, I was looking at a lot of different things to help attention, and I became interested in energy medicine. And in energy medicine, they deal with 9 different what they call energy systems. For example, an acupuncturist and acupuncturists are pretty well accepted now, I'd say. Um, they only deal with one energy system. And so in the type of energy medicine I'm trained in, which was I actually went to 5 years of training in it, not full time. It's a part time that training that you do. But when I asked one of the acupuncturists, "Why did you study Eden Energy Medicine?" Another, 4 or 5 years of study, and that's what they told me, because acupuncture only deals with one, and in Eden Energy Medicine, we deal with 9 different systems. And so we use meridians, we use acupressure instead of acupuncture. There are some systems that you probably wouldn't recognize if I said their names because they're not that familiar to other people. But it's a one of the wonderful things. Is yes, we work on individuals helping their body to help heal itself. And I think that our bodies, we need Western medicine too. It's a complementary medicine. It's not an either or. It's an and. And yes, we work on people, but we teach people that they can also work on themselves. And you talk about working with, body, mind, and spirit, and mind has both the cognitive and the emotional. Well, we work with all those things in energy medicine. And so, as I worked in energy medicine, I also learned from Donna Eden. It's her business. Her husband works with her in the business. Actually, all her children do. And her husband was doing what he is now called energy psychology. So, tapping. And this was before it was known as tapping or energy psychology, and, so I learned it through, uh, Eden Energy Medicine, and then I learned it by going through the, EFT training, Emotional Freedom Technique training, and so I began doing that also, which is, it's really gratifying. You're doing it pretty much one-on-one, you're really working with people. You wouldn't believe some of the things, I've seen people I see them distance a lot of times, and, um, one of the women I worked with, and she had a really bad stomach ache and a headache, and I worked with her distance, and it was gone when we finished. Her husband called me the voodoo lady. "What did the voodoo lady do with you this time that, cured something?" And then what I found also, and this will, and I teach meditation. I teach mindfulness-based stress reduction, and like I said, I did research on that with the military, and so I also am involved with that. But between doing those 3 things, what I found happening, not just with me, but with other people, it is around the 3rd year that you're working in Eden Energy Medicine, people begin having psychic phenomena occur, where you know something about the person that you're working with that you wouldn't normally know. And that got me really curious. Well, what is this? I haven't been psychic in my life that I know of. And so, at one of the EFT meetings, a day after the conference, they had an all-day class on intuition. And the woman that, taught the class is, an incredible psychic here in the United States, and she, introduced me to the idea of it and said, "You know what? Nobody comes to my classes unless they're already psychic." And I was like, I don't think that could be true." But, then I took a couple of classes with her, and it turned out that I could be psychic, and her name is Candace Thomas, if anybody is interested. And, and then as I kept doing, that kind of work, I mean, the kind of work that is, the energy medicine and the EFT, I found that I began to have mediumistic experiences. And sometimes,
Can you explain that? Because I'm not familiar with that.
yeah, it's really, and I gotta tell you that they just began to happen. It's not something that I ran out and tried to learn or anything at that point. But, the first thing that happened, and I'll just tell you my personal experience before, telling you some of the things that happened during treatments. Here I had delved to a little bit of the psychic stuff because it was happening, right? And some of the psychic things that I might know about a person in treatment might be that they were having trouble with, here I'm doing something physical with them, working on a meridian system, and, I might could just know that, they were going through a divorce, but they hadn't shared it with me, and they hadn't talked about it. Or I might know that, one of their children is having significant problems, and, or I might start talking to them about something that, and for some, I don't know why that particular thing was on my mind that they would need. And then I would talk a little bit about it and they would go, "Oh gosh, that just happened to me last week and yesterday." And I would have picked up on something that hadn't been verbalized or put down in their intake sheet, but I somehow knew it, right?
Val, we're running out of time.
Okay.
This is so interesting, and I think anyone who wants to learn more about this, how can they be in touch? Because
Um,
this is so different from the work you have been doing.
oh,
Um,
yeah, totally different.
how
Um,
can someone be
they're
in touch
welcome
to
to
learn more?
contact me. I do have a website. It's, vitallife.com, but it only has one L in it, VitaLife.com.
Oh,
And,
great.
and it tells how to contact me there, and also my email is VitaLife Center. And I might have said my website wrong. It's VitaLife Center, I'm sorry, .com. All
Thank
one
you.
word. All one.
Thank you. And I
Yeah.
think it's amazing how your career has evolved and what you're doing. And it's a career that, when you take each individual aspect of it, it's a lifetime.
It
Um,
is. It's very different. Um, but they all go well together. One led into another and fed each other, so it's been really amazing.
well, thank you. And thank you for being on Learn at Work. And thank you for all your support over the years for the journal. And
I love it, and I love that now we're getting some, journal issues that are about complementary medicine, and so if there's anybody out there that wants to write an article on a complementary medicine, meditation, I don't Reiki, whatever, um, yeah, I'd be interested.
that'd be great. Yes,
And
because
I also work with a company that does, scientific consulting, and so we help people, do research in, eat and energy medicine. So if you have questions about your own research or a case study, I can answer some of those too.
oh, thank you, Val. Thank you again for being on here. And everyone, thank you for listening to Learn at Work. And this is an opportunity to get to know authors and editorial board members who have been part of Work and have made Work such a successful journal. So thank you. And Valerie, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Karen. I love being here.